Hi everyone, welcome to the Using Mango Languages in Your Classroom webinar and live demo. I'm glad you all could be here today. I'm Miriah, and I am the account manager for all of Mango's higher education institutions. So here shortly, I'm going to be going over how to use and navigate the Mango software, set up your classes, and monitor and track student progress. I'll be going over the classroom features available for instructors through the Mango Languages Dashboard. So every higher education institution with a Mango subscription has access to these features already. And later, my colleague, Brian Rovito, will be showing you some new features and materials that we're now offering and how you can get them. So if you're interested in hearing more about those, just stick around to the end. So jumping right in, the first step in creating your classroom is making sure you have instructor access. So this can be granted through the Mango admin portal. And if you're not an admin on the Mango admin portal, be sure to reach out to your school's admin or to myself to switch your general account into an instructor account. And if you are an admin, let's check out how you can change status here. In the Mango admin portal, this is your dashboard. And you can get to this page by going to org.mangolanguages.com. As an admin, you can come in here and you can click on the All Users tab and search for any existing user. So we'll go ahead and search here. And then you can click on the user, hit edit at the bottom of the screen, and change their user type from student or user to an instructor. If the instructor doesn't already have a Mango account, you can add them from the Add User button right up here and add them as a new teacher. All you have to do is enter their email address and then just make sure that this send a welcome email button is checked, and then they'll get a welcome email prompting them to finish setting up their account. So if you do not have instructor access, you won't be able to access the instructor dashboard that we're going to be going over today. So be sure to get that set up. And once you are an instructor, you can go ahead and log into your account at learn.mangolanguages.com. And I won't be going over everything in the actual program right now, but there are a few features that I do want to point out. And if you would like an in-depth program demo, you can schedule that with me at any time. So once you're in the program, you can select your language that you want to be starting in. Here's the language screen where you can pick from your most recent languages you've been working in. There's also Mango's most popular languages below that, and all 70 plus languages that Mango has to offer in alphabetical order underneath that. So for now, we'll just start in Spanish. And the first tool that I want to point out to you guys is this Resume Learning button here. So this feature is helpful so your students don't have to remember where they last left off. They can just hit that button here and be brought back into the last lesson they were working on. Underneath the Resume Learning button is the Daily Review Card feature. So as students work their way through the individual lessons, we have an algorithm in the back that pulls out keywords and phrases that they need to commit to their long-term memory. These phrases are then put into a deck of review cards, and students can come in and work on those review cards each day. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at those really quickly. We'll just get started.
Try to say, is it summer in Argentina in January?
Okay, so this will give you the word or phrase, and now the student would just translate this out loud to the other language. Once they have, they can click See Answer.
Es verano en Argentina en enero.
All right, and then they can mark if they got the card right or incorrect. So there is this oval button here that shows you these 7 markings on the card. The student will essentially need to get the card right 7 times to complete it, and at that point, they will have memorized the word or phrase. If for some reason a student sees a card and they already know, they have it memorized, they can come to the bottom left corner here and hit this trophy button and mark the card as memorized, and that'll take it right out of the review deck. All right, so that is the daily review card feature. Moving right down, we have our placement tests. So placement tests are available in our top 17 languages. Students can come in and take this test if they have any prior knowledge of the language, and Mango will suggest a place for them to start in the software based on their scoring. Underneath the placement tests are our main units of content. So a quick note about our units, they do compare favorably to ACTFL standards. So they work their way from novice low all the way to intermediate high and advanced low. Checking out the chapters and lessons, as I hover over the lessons, you might notice this paperclip icon here. So this lets you deep link lessons if you're using something like Google Classroom, or if you want to send students a direct link to the lessons you want them working in. You can just click the paperclip and copy the direct link and paste it wherever you need to send that to them. There are also 3 different types of assessments in the program. We'll be working with chapter pre and post quizzes, unit tests, and course assessments. And we'll be going over these a little bit more later when we look at the dashboard. The last thing I'll point out here before we go into the groups tab and look at that dashboard is this Explore tab. And this is where our Mango movies live. So these are full-length feature films available in our top languages. And it's up to you if you'd like to use these in your classes. Students can watch these with subtitles like a regular movie, or they can watch them in engage mode, where the movie is broken up scene by scene and students can pause to review vocabulary before moving on. So a popular use for these is having students watch the movie and then write some sort of Mango movie report. So if you're interested in using these films, they can again be found under the Explore tab. Moving into our Groups tab, this is where you'll be creating, locating, and monitoring your groups. So we'll start by creating a new group. After you click the Groups tab, you'll see at the top a button that says Create New Group. So this will bring you into a new page to fill in your specific classroom details. The first line is your group name. So you'll want to make this something specific like the course number and section to help easily identify which group of students you're looking for. So we'll go ahead and name this Spanish 350-002. The second box is the group account. So when you click on the drop-down menu, your institution name will appear, and then you can select it. The first 2 boxes are required to be filled in, and everything else on the page is up to you. You can choose to leave them blank and have Mango record all data for your students, or you can narrow down specific data to be collected for the students. For example, in the next box is a group language. So you can click on the arrow here and select a language out of all of the languages Mango has to offer, and choose the language that your students will be studying. Keep in mind when you select a language, only data from this language will be collected to view on your Instructor Dashboard. So if I choose Spanish as my group language, any other language studied by students outside of Spanish will not be tracked or recorded in the dashboard. However, it will be tracked under your students' individual profiles. The next box is also optional and gives you the choice to select a group start and end date. So this is helpful when creating classes based on semester cycles and will only track data from students within the time frame set. To set the dates, you'll just click the drop-down arrow again and select the dates from the calendar. We'll mark that as December 17th. So next you have the option to set beginning and ending unit and chapter goals for your group. So for example, at the beginning of the year, I might want to set the content goal beginning at Unit 1, Chapter 1. And by the end of the semester, I might want the students to be through Unit 1, Chapter 4. Once again, whatever content you do choose, only data from these units and chapters will be collected to view in the dashboard. Lastly is the hours per week goal. So you can set a usage goal for your students if you have a specific amount of time that you would like them spending in Mango each week. You can just type the number of hours you'd like in the box, and then after you're done here, you can hit Create New Group, and then your classroom is created. And you can change these settings at any time within the dashboard in the settings. So after the group is created, you will add students to your group by just following to the next screen. And this brings you to the Invitations tab in your dashboard. Here you can enter your students' email addresses separated by a comma, and then just send them each individual invitations. Or you can give students a group invite code right here. And once they have their Mango account set up, they will be able to go in at learn.mangolanguages.com per usual and enter that group code. So this is the student view. They do not have the groups tab like instructors do. So they will actually find the groups tab under the drop down in the right corner. And they'll just go into groups, join group, and enter your invite code. Okay, and if students do not have a Mango account set up yet, they will need to create that using the school's unique Mango link that is typically found on your website or at a language resource page. And they can create that from a desktop or a web browser on their phone. And once the account is created, they can join your group and log in from a mobile device. All right, so now we will be looking at the groups tab again.
And Miriah, very quickly, I see a question here. How can I access my instructor dashboard? I believe it was mentioned at the start of the webinar.
Oh, I'm sorry, I can't see any of the questions.
That's why when I feel like they're relevant, I'll go ahead and stop you.
Yeah, absolutely. So your dashboard, you'll first need to have instructor access. So that's what I was going over with the Mango admin portal. You'll need to be granted instructor access. And then once you log in again, you will have this groups tab here. Does that make sense? Look up there. All right, so in the groups tab, we can look at the Mango classroom here. And this is what your dashboard will be looking like. So first you'll see a list of your students in your group that you've added. Here you can see the number of lessons completed, assessments, average scores on those assessments, their current progress towards the group goal, review time, learning time spent in Mango, and total time spent in Mango. So keep in mind that all of these data points are determined based on the settings you chose when you set up your groups. So if you ever want or need to change any of the group settings, you can do that in the settings tab here. All right, so going back to the dashboard, you have the option of changing your time frames. You can look at the last 7, 15, or 30 days, or you can enter a custom date range. All right, and the data displayed on the dashboard will change based on the time frame chosen. And underneath the time frames, this is your quick class overview for your group's progress. So each gray box shows an average number for your class as a whole. These averages include lessons completed, assessments, their average score, progress towards the group goal, and total time spent in Mango. If you did not set a beginning and ending course goal for your group, this progress box will be left blank. So that's what you're seeing here. Following the quick class view, you'll see the same data displayed for all of your students. You can clearly see each student and all of their assessment scores and time spent. And to get a more in-depth view of each individual student, you can just click on their name to view their overall usage and assessment scores. And again, you can adjust their content shown based on the date range in each individual student. So here you can see the activity report. This shows what the student has been working on during this time frame. And below that, all the way at the bottom, he has a lot of time in here, you can see the assessment report. So this is where you'll see specific assessment details, including how much time or how many times a student has taken an assessment, their final score, the test itself, as well as their answers. So if you wanted to see what they got wrong specifically in the test, you can click on View, and you can see these answers here. You can also download their individual scores as well, their individual tests here. All right, so now that we've seen how to monitor student progress in the system, we still need to know how to both take and track students' assessment scores. So first, your students will need to take their assessments. Mango has a pre and post quiz. If we go back into the learning dashboard, we have a pre and post quiz. We have the same for our units. So here you can see the unit pretest followed by all of the chapters and then the unit post-test. Here I'm in Unit 1. If we click into a chapter, you can see that the pre-quiz comes first, and then you will have your students complete all of the lessons before taking the post-quiz. One thing to note here is that the content is not locked, meaning that your students can take the quizzes and assessments as many times as they'd like. You can have them take the post-quiz and post-assessments until they reach a desired score that you set for them, or you can set the expectation that they only take the quiz or assessment one time. And remember that you can see every time they take that assessment in your dashboard. However, regardless of your expectation set, the student growth for assessments will only be measured from their first pre-score to their last post-score. So after they've taken these quizzes and tests, you're going to go ahead and monitor their assessment scores in your Groups tab under the Assessments tab here. And again, this can be filtered by a specific date range, and the gray boxes below show your class at a glance. So if you want to see student details, they are down below, and you can come down here and see all of your students, their quizzes, tests, assessment scores, and their growth. So their growth will show again from their first pre-assessment to their last post-assessment. And if you want to drill down further to see more detailed information, you can go ahead and click on the students, and this will bring you to the same student view as before, with their assessment or their activity report appearing first. This is just what units and chapters they've been working on and how much time they've spent in it on what days, and below their assessment reports. So now that we've learned a little bit about how to navigate the program and use the Instructor Dashboard, there are just a couple more things that I want to show you today before I turn it over to my colleague Brian, and then we'll answer some questions. So in the Groups tab on the main page, you may have noticed this button here for course guides. So if you click into here, this will show you all of the course guides that Mango has to offer. And if you click on the individual course guides, this will auto-download the PDFs for you. So we have the course guides here that auto-download as the PDFs. And here you can see a complete overview of the content that can be found inside the course, including conversation and grammar goals and the vocab and phrases that are taught in the program for all of the chapters and units. All right, so moving back to the learning dashboard, right here in the upper right-hand corner, we're back in this main drop-down here. This is where you can find individual information for both yourself and your students. They can find all of this information in here. So if you click on your profile, you can change your email and password. But one really cool thing that I want to show you guys is the family profiles. So every Mango account, both yours and your students, get 5 free additional family profiles. And each student would be the one setting these up for whomever they decide to give them to. And it's very simple to set up. You go into the Groups tab, or you go into the Family Profiles tab and click Add New Profile, and then simply assign a username and password. And once those are assigned, that family profile can then go to learn.mangolanguages.com or to the mobile app and log in and begin to use Mango as well. And again, one thing to note is that the family profile data will not show up in the Instructor Dashboard. The last thing here for you guys is this Activity tab. So students don't have the same data view that you have in your Instructor Dashboard, but they still can view their own activity and assessment reports in the Activities tab on their main page here. So this wraps up the overview of the Mango Classroom features that you already have access to through your schools. And now I'll turn it over to my colleague Brian, an account executive here at Mango, and he'll be showing you some feature upgrades that have been added to Mango Classroom recently and how you can find more about them if you're interested in having these available at your school. Thank you all for listening.
Awesome. Thank you, Miriah. I did want to ask before I move forward, how many of the guests on the call today are either librarians or work in the academic library? If you do, could you raise your hand if you see the little button on the bottom, Jalen? Yeah, it looks like the majority of you, which is good. And that's sort of what we expected, if not all of you. That's great. So thank you for doing that. What you might see is that you have students at your schools that are excited to learn languages on their own, but you probably also have, in many cases, language faculty that might look to you and say, what resources do you have to help me help students learn? And what Miriah has shown you is great. We do have those great student features, like the review feature that Miriah went ahead and walked you through, like the tracking and the quizzes. So teachers can use all these things to help students move forward in their class, and even as assessment tools to help assess students along the way. But what I'm going to show you are classroom tools that teachers that are teaching language classes, either virtually or in an actual classroom, they can use these to take the Mango software and really bring it alive in their classroom. And there are some sort of antiquated notions about language software, that it's there to replace teachers, or well, if the library has this, then maybe people won't want to take my Spanish classes. And we're not here as a company to do that to your language faculty or your English language learner faculty. We want to supplement and help with what they're doing. So that's the idea behind what I'm about to show you. I'm going to walk you through a PowerPoint today of two separate tools that we have. The first is going to be an educator's guide to best practices. We'll talk a little bit about that. These are blanket activities that your language faculty could bring into, say, a Spanish, German, Japanese, whatever class, to take what students are doing in the Mango software, if they're using that, and build around that in the classroom, really make it practical and give them that language practice that we know they need. We also have some classroom guides, which are activities that we built around specific chapters in 7 different languages. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But first, we will look at the Educator's Guide to Best Practices. So we have created 100 lesson plans. And these are correlated to Bloom's taxonomy and the depth of knowledge levels, so DOK levels. Your faculty might know a bit more about these than even I do, but I do know these are great classifications to help educators understand how to use these activities in the classroom. And these were built by 2 staff members that Mango has on staff that are actually former educators. So a lot of thought went behind these. And I'm going to go ahead and move forward to show you that, as I said, these are 100 hands-on lesson plans, and we've grouped them into different categories. One-on-one instruction, social emotional learning, small and whole group instruction, classroom discussion, review games, and project and or problem-based learning projects. Some of these activities will come with rubrics for your instructors to use to grade students. So if they did want to use these as an evaluation tool to evaluate a student's ability to use the language, these are going to be great tools for that as well. Not all of them have rubrics, but some of them do. So we'll walk through those. So what does each lesson entail? Number one, there's going to be a list of materials. So occasionally in these activities, there will be like something for the teacher to print out to get ready to give to their bring to their class beforehand. But sometimes it'll be something like you see in the activity here, a beach ball, something that should be pretty easily obtainable, but we'll list that so they're prepared. Then there will be rubrics, templates, worksheets that they can print out as well. There's a time estimate in each activity so that when your professors, when your faculty are budgeting class time, they'll know around how much class time to dedicate to an activity they're going to use. And then there is alignment to Bloom's taxonomy and the depth of knowledge levels. So these are going to range from remembering to creating in the Bloom's taxonomy, and also levels 1 through 4 in the depth of knowledge levels. So in the university level, I think you're probably going to want to concentrate on these activities that are more toward that level 3, level 4, unless they are true beginners in the language, and then many activities can apply. And then it's going to be a step-by-step procedure of what the teacher should do to bring this into the classroom and how to plan the activity, how to set it up, and how to execute it. These are adaptable for all grade levels. So you will see, and it says K-12, but it's actually beyond that to university and college settings. So we have adaptations for novice, intermediate, and advanced, intermediate, high, advanced, low learners. And really that's going to correspond to their level of exposure to the language. So if they're new learners, they might be able to use these novice adaptations. Whereas when you're looking at your intermediate, advanced learners that you might find in a university or college setting, they can use the adaptations for those learners. We also have some Mango integrations. So not all of these activities are going to correspond directly to a chapter in Mango, but some of them do. One of the activities, I know this is just sort of a rudimentary example, but it will correspond to a cooking lesson. And it'll be an activity of how to, create a recipe using the target language. So it will tell them this is going to correspond directly to this language and chapter, or it's going to just be a general activity that teachers can use. And then hopefully this won't be as applicable as it has been, at least over the past year, but you never know what the world will bring us. So we do have remote learning adaptations for each activity. So the best practices are built and meant to be used in a physical classroom, but we know the past year has brought us a lot of twists and turns. And you can see here that we do have this remote learning adaptation in case you do have students that are learning remotely, even outside of pandemic times. And then you'll see that some activities, not all, will have additional materials. So you can see here we have an oral presentation rubric. So this would be great to use if, say, you wanted to have students get up in front of the class and give a presentation. You'll see that they do correspond to the ACTFL levels in this particular example, which are national language standards. Miriah, I think you mentioned those earlier in the presentation. And we did mention some of the lessons will come with provided materials. So you see here, there's a worksheet that goes on with this, that goes along with this particular activity. So some of them will come with materials, but some will just be things that the teachers will provide on their own. And then we have some examples. So here, again, we see keyword information and memory is this specific activity. It is in the category of one-on-one instruction. We see the level 2, about 20 minutes. The taxonomy tier is going to be understanding. And then you see the 1, 2, 3 procedure, as well as the adaptations that we talked about. And here's that worksheet we saw on the previous page. But as we look at these, the best practices were meant to be used for any language that Mango offers, or really any, they're general language learning activities that teachers can use to teach in the classroom. We have also developed classroom guides in 7 languages that correspond directly to the unit and chapter within the Mango software of these languages. Those languages are English for Spanish speakers. We have German, Japanese, Spanish, Mandarin, Chinese, Italian, and French. And these come complete with lesson plans and student workbooks that correspond directly to the Mango software. And here you see an example of the start of one of the teacher's editions of the classroom guides. So it's going to give you an overview of what students are learning in this particular chapter. Here we see Unit 1, Chapter 1, which is Salutations and Small Talk. And we will see some learning objectives that you'd actually see within the software. So you'll see the conversational goals and grammar goals of this chapter. And then we see some time budgeting again. So if teachers want to know, Mango Conversations is the name of the software, how long students will need to spend outside of class on their own moving through this chapter. We see that there are 7 lessons, it's going to take us about 2 hours. And then if we do the listening, reading, and recap, that'll take us some extra time as well. And then the lesson plan. So if we do each of these activities, we have 2 to 4 hours generally of classroom activity, but you can see each one broken down, and teachers can use as many or as few of these as they want. So you'll see that as we move forward. And the classroom guides come complete with printable evaluation matrices. So these are another way outside of those built-in evaluations that Miriah showed you earlier. Teachers could evaluate orally or perhaps via written work what students should be able to do when they get to the end of this chapter. We call these in language learning can-do statements. And basically, you can see the reason why. Students can express gratitude. Students can correctly use pronouns. So these are things that teachers can evaluate students on after moving through the Mango chapter. And you can see we provided the criteria of strongly, marginally, and missed. But really, if you want to use A, B, C, D, F, or I don't know, a percentage score, teachers can use whatever they want. And then you'll see again activities. So what we're looking at here is a dialogue practice where students would practice a dialogue that they learned in the Mango software. And again, you see these modification options for easy, medium, and difficult. So you'll see these in all of the activities for the best practices and the classroom guides. Here's another applied dialogue practice where the dialogue is out of order. Students would be asked to put it together. Also, just different questions and responses that they can use. And this is a good idea for speaking practice because in the Mango software, we're doing a lot of this on our own, but here we could pair students up. We could get students in front of the class, really get them speaking the language using what they learned in the chapter. Additionally, we have some grammar and vocabulary activities where students will practice either a grammar concept that was introduced in the lesson within Mango's chapter or vocabulary that was introduced. Now, sometimes we'll have additional vocabulary exercises. And an example I like to use here comes back to food, where let's say in a Mango chapter, you learn the word for taco, pizza, and hamburger. There's way more foods than that, right? But we just don't have time to introduce them all within the chapter. So there might be a vocabulary worksheet that's actually introducing additional food vocabulary to correspond to that chapter. And then the last thing you'll see are within the classroom guides, we do have some classroom cultural discussions. So if you guys have used Mango, you probably know that there are cultural notes within our software that talk about just cultural nuances that might help frame the language that the students are learning within the context of the culture of that country. And we've gone beyond that and created some discussion topics around that. So you can take these ideas, these cultural ideas, and turn them into classroom discussions. And that's where you'll see cultural discussion prompts. And we also have some writing prompts. So a lot of what we do within the Mango software is focused on listening, speaking, and reading. But obviously that fourth skill of writing is also very important. So we've created some writing prompts for teachers to assign and grade on their own using the can-do statements and the evaluation matrix. So really, these are two additional things that you could have in your arsenal. They are part of an additional classroom package that Mango sells. So if you're interested in getting some more information about these resources, or if you think you have faculty that might want to look it over, we'd be more than happy to schedule a meeting and give you some more info. And we can sort of wrap things up with some Q&A here. It looks like Sarah has a question. Do we know what determines how vocabulary is chosen? I realize that might be a linguist developer question. I just wonder because there's so much variation in Latin America. Sarah, good point. And that's not only Spanish. So if you look at Arabic, Mango actually provides 4 different dialects of Arabic within our software, but there are way more dialects of Arabic than that. So what we've tried to do is generalize. For all of our languages, the way that we would describe it is it would be a language similar to what you'd see on a news broadcast that would go out, on a Spanish language channel that's broadcast all around Latin America. So we don't typically get really specific unless we feel it's necessary. So sometimes we do have grammar notes and cultural notes within the software that discuss particular differences between countries. For example, they use a pronoun vos in Argentina that's not used around the rest of Latin America, and that's addressed several times within Mango. So the language that we're teaching We try to keep it as general as possible, but sometimes there is the need to address specific regions or countries, and we will do that as well. Regarding the vocabulary that's chosen for the best practices and the best practices and the classroom guides, that would be a linguist question, but I do think that they would tell you they try to keep it as general as possible and not use specific language to a country, because you're right, there's regions in Latin America where if I say something the way they say it in Colombia, in Mexico, they might not even understand me. So we're going to try to use more general language to get around that.
And Sarah, we do work with a team of linguists and native speakers when creating these courses. So we do have native speakers who were very hands-on with working with our linguists and developing these specific language courses, if that helps at all. Dwayne said, is it possible to have access to the writing prompts outside of the classroom settings for individual learners, or does a user have to be a part of a class to access these? So what Brian just went over is a separate package that if you were interested, you or whoever is a purchasing agent at your school could look into with our sales executives, and you could distribute these straight to your students if you wanted to. So you would get basically a folder that has all of these writing prompts, all of the lesson plans in them, and you can distribute them how you would like.
Yeah, but to answer your question, Dwayne, they don't have to be used in a class, Miriah. You're right. They were designed to be used in a class, but if you think they could help students outside of a classroom setting, of course, we can make them available.
Thank you all for joining us today. I hope this was really informative. If you have any questions about any of this, you can reach out to myself. My email is miriah.moore@mangolanguages.com. If you have any interest in the materials that Brian went over, when you receive the post-webinar email, it will have a link to the recording of this demo, as well as a form that you can fill out to schedule a meeting with an account executive. So with all that being said, it doesn't look like we have any more questions coming in. So thank you all for attending, and just let me know if you need anything. Thanks so much, guys.